You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Thank you for joining us here at Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. I'm joined today with our executive producer, Joe Venosa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Joe. How are you?
Great. We have our next county council meeting is this Tuesday, August 6th at 6 p.m. in room 301. And before we dive into a lot of the bigger agenda items, work session, and even our interview with Councilwoman Shani Shields, there are two hearings coming up at this next council meeting that folks should know about.
So there's actually two very important pieces of information that will be included in this session. The first of which is going to be an amendment to the cannabis zoning legislation. And of course that's going to be important because that could very well determine, for example, where certain dispensaries or businesses regarding cannabis will be located within the county. And the second bit of information that will be examined by the council in this session is going to actually be an amendment to the water and sewer master plan, where essentially they'll be annexing property to include in the new plan. So,
Off of Brown Road.
yes.
So, and both of these are hearings. So hearing means it's open for public comment. So if you have a specific concern or an attitude towards whether setting up the new plan for wastewater and that sort of thing on Brown Road, or about the zoning, and that could impact like school zones and how those are set up, not just now, but into the future. Seen some of the work session diagrams that they've shown with this type of zoning or that type of zoning. This would be a great time for the public to come out and make their voice heard.
Absolutely.
So the other thing is the work session. It's scheduled. The sheriff's office is going to be there to discuss this very hot topic about the encryption and any opportunity that any group may have an MOU with our current county executive to discern information that is coming out off of this encrypted radio. This is not a public hearing. This is an open work session.
Yes.
This is, to me, one of the coolest things when you're, especially for a councilmatic type of government, everything is transparent and out in the open. This is where the public can get to see the work being done. So what do you think about that?
Absolutely. Well, and not only are you getting to see the work getting done in a public way, but arguably one of the most important kinds of issues in a county government like we have, which is public safety. I suspect this is going to be one of the more important meetings that we've had in quite some time in Wicomico County in terms of what not only the issue is, but sort of how the issues that have been developing over the last few years between the county executive and the council, the sheriff's office, how all these very kind of complicated issues and interests are converging on a very important topic, right, which is this issue of encryption.
Well, and in this example, it's encryption. But more importantly, rather than waiting for the traditional media to report on whatever rhetoric comes out of it, this is a chance for the public to come and see for themselves. Then they can watch on PAC 14. It'll be on live. They can come. You're allowed to come. You're even allowed to have public comments during the open public comments. But the work sessions after that, you can actually see the work being done out in the open.
And to your point, rather than find out about certain bits of information on the news later, you're watching it as it happens. So it's not only that you're getting a front row seat, but you're actually seeing it before it's distilled into maybe a soundbite, right? So you get the full experience because you're there.
There's been a lot of folks who have approached us knowing that our mission is transparency and openness to the agenda items. And it seems like their position has to do with their concerns over the current executive. But this goes beyond that. We're on our fourth different executive, and we've had them from all different walks of life. We've had a business owner, we've had a career politician, we've had an interim, we've had an educator. In every instance, as we have looked back through the history, we're finding multiple times where there's not transparency in that business that's done just through the executive's office. That's not an option for the county council.
Correct, and therein lies the thing, is that this is a structural problem, I think, in a lot of people's minds, because fundamentally, in a councilmatic form of government, by its nature, it has to be out in the open. It has to be based on consensus. It has to be based on sort of, a synthesis of different views, and you do not have that in any system where you have a executive government that can operate with very little oversight. Because it's not only that we have executive systems that have maybe tremendous power or lack of oversight, but when they're created with such ill-defined roles,
It can get really scary quick.
get very scared quickly.
And I think for bigger counties, such as like Anne Arundel County or Howard County across the bridge, maybe having a county executive form of government maybe makes sense for them. I don't know. We don't live there.
I agree, and I would go a little further. I think essentially a county executive role or position is inherently a Western Maryland, Annapolis thing. I think it is actually fundamentally against sort of the nature, the culture, and the history of the Eastern Shore.
Well, I had a great chance to meet up with Councilwoman Shani Shields. She represents District 1, which is mostly inside of Salisbury. And before we ever sat down for an interview, I got a chance to ride passenger in her car. I went to go to Delaware Avenue to see where she was born and raised, where she lives now. We rode through Indian Village Park. We rode through the whole West Side neighborhoods, the good and the bad, the developing and maybe the stagnant. And then we ended at her home. I had a chance to sit on the front porch. But then every question I asked, every topic we touched, the underlying issue was, with a county our size and the inability to have the utmost transparency when it comes to county business, continues to marginalize every different group. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. This is not a East Side versus West Side or urban versus rural thing. Mm-hmm. Every different group does not get open representation when decisions are allowed to be made without public input.
Absolutely. And not only that, but many groups can also have detrimental experiences and effects because of it. So it's not just that they may not have a voice, but they might have harm done to them in this current system the way it's
Well, we've seen that firsthand at the meetings.
We definitely have.
So here's what we want to encourage you to do. Watch on PAC 14 Tuesday night, go to the council meeting, make your voice heard. This is not personal attacks on anyone, but this is important government politics for our county, for our taxpayers, and we want you to participate. When we come back, we're going to sit down with Councilwoman Shani Shields, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what her motivations were to run, what she feels is the challenges of the county now, and what she sees some of the challenges we have going forward with or without a councilmatic form of government. We'll be right back.
Nestled along the banks of the Wicomico River, just 3 miles from downtown Salisbury, Pemberton Historical Park provides a window into 18th century plantation life on the Eastern Shore. In addition to the restored colonial plantation buildings, you can also discover 4.5 miles of walking trails, brackish water marshes, forests, open space, and scenic views of the Wicomico River. Also available are picnic areas with grills, fishing ponds, public restrooms, and a nature center. The 900-acre plantation known as Pemberton Manor was purchased by Isaac Handy and his wife, Anne DeShiel, in 1726, 50 years before the United States became a nation. They thereupon began building the now restored manor house known as Pemberton Hall, which was completed in 1741. With the skills and labor of approximately 20 African slaves, the Handy family grew tobacco for export to England, as well as a variety of food crops for their own consumption and for shipping to markets up and down the eastern seaboard. They also operated a lumber mill, maintained fruit orchards, made cider and brandy, and milled grain. Additionally, the Handys were part owners of several ships which were used to transport the plantation's bounty to faraway markets. Throughout the 1700s, tobacco was the plantation's primary cash crop. The dried tobacco was packed into large barrels known as hogsheads, which were rolled down to Mulberry Landing Wharf at the water's edge over what was known then as the Rolling Road. The hogsheads of tobacco and other plantation products were then loaded onto scows and moved to ships anchored in deeper water for transport to their destinations. The driveway used to enter the park was once part of that rolling road, and at low tide, you may be able to see remnants of the Mulberry Landing Wharf, which was built in 1746 and is the oldest documented bulkhead wharf in the United States. By the 20th century, the manor house, Pemberton Hall, had fallen into disrepair and by the 1960s had become uninhabitable. But in 1963, the decaying buildings were transferred to the Pemberton Hall Foundation along with 262 acres of the plantation's original acreage. After doing meticulous research, the Pemberton Hall Foundation restored the manor house to its original condition, right down to the paint colors and furnishings. Pemberton Historical Park is open all year from dawn till dusk. The Manor House is open to the public on the first and third Sundays of each month from May through October between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m. Private tours can also be arranged, and several public events and festivals take place at the park from spring through fall. For more information, visit the Wicomico County Recreation Parks and Tourism website or PembertonHallFoundation.com. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks for joining us back for Open Agenda. I'm here with Councilwoman Shani Shields. Ms. Shields, thanks for joining us today.
And thanks for asking me to run my mouth.
Oh,
I
I
love
tell you, it's been a pleasure. Just so you know, Ms. Shani and I, we've taken a tour of her district. Some great neighborhoods, some neighborhoods that could really use some tender love and care. And I think getting to know you and your position at the county council meetings, I think you're a huge neighborhood advocate. Would you agree?
I certainly am. That's one of the main reasons why I ran for office. I see a particular neighborhood, Westover Hill, the one that has the stone houses up on the hill, and another one, Newport Circle. I think that that's a blighted area, one of the blighted areas in this side of town. And I think that needs to be addressed by the property owners.
Yeah, and listening to you at the county council meetings, I think you're hoping to offer a better quality of life for the folks living in those neighborhoods.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So tell me a little bit about your experience on the city council.
Oh, I do things that I like doing, and I'm project oriented. I don't come with personal agendas. I don't come to do favors for people. Where I see a need for improvement, I pick that as a project. And one of the projects you hear constantly about the flooding. And back when I originally got on the council, we had a study done. I believe it cost $20,000, and it did the whole city of Salisbury's area. And I found out not only Germania Circle had a flooding problem, was other areas in the city that also had flooding problems. And I think that eventually it will be addressed. I talked to the current mayor, and he explained some things that they're going to be doing to help alleviate the funding. It's gradually getting better, but you're near the Wicomico River, and some things cannot be solved. And one of my dreams was to buy all the property on Germania Circle and make a stormwater pond and maybe call it Germania Park.
Okay.
And that was one of the disappointments because everybody didn't want to sell their property.
Okay.
And with the MEMA funding, it was like $400,000. All the properties had to be bought. The people had to be willing to sell it before we could do the project.
Okay.
So that was one failure. But one good thing also came about was River's Edge Apartments. River's Edge Apartments next to Chesapeake Building. We had the senior housing, Victoria Park that I showed you off of Sassafras neighborhood. Then most recently, I was part of the agreement with the house at Johnson's Pond, which is on Lake Street. So that's affordable housing.
Okay.
Because one of the concerns we talk about, we want affordable housing, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. Yes, we do. I agree wholeheartedly. But we also need to have good paying jobs so people don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs to meet the cost of living.
We were talking about some of the newer houses built and some of the starting prices there. It does seem like it would take a few folks out, and then if you're up against a blighted neighborhood, that would also be a
Yes,
concern for property values too.
yes. And many years ago, Salisbury Neighborhood Housing, which is a great, great service. Now, I'm not up to date on the new services, but I intend to meet with Cheryl Meadows to see what's the new products that's out there. And it was to increase home ownership in the blighted area.
Okay.
And I think that's an excellent, excellent idea. We bought a whole block. Neighborhood housing got some funding and bought a whole block and made it for home ownership.
Okay.
And it was affordable mortgages. And that was a great idea. And they eventually came out in this area because it was just for the city. But now they're coming into the county because some of the houses on Adventist Drive is part of Salisbury Neighborhood Housing projects because it would have the kids build a home from Parkside and move them in that
Out that
area.
area, yeah.
Yeah. So you were doing 2 things, home ownership and teaching the kids to see a
Yeah.
project they finished.
They built some excellent
Yes,
houses
they
coming out
had.
of that
They
program.
sure did. They sure did. They sure did.
Now, I know you were just appointed to the committee for Shore Up.
Yes.
And you've been a volunteer there before. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
What I did, the Shore Up has wonderful projects. Head Start, give kids that maybe not be able to afford daycare or something. It gives them opportunity to have a head start in their education. You have the fuel assistance program to help people with their heating costs. They had a youth program to kids that dropped out, help them get their GEDs. There's so many products that they have now, even aids to help someone in their home.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
The Salisbury Riverwalk Amphitheater is located downtown on the city's highly acclaimed Riverwalk, right next door to the La Quinta Hotel. The amphitheater is downtown Salisbury's preeminent outdoor entertainment venue with 6 rows of tiered grass-covered seating arranged in a semicircular coliseum style, which can accommodate almost 700 people. The stage area abuts the river, thus providing spectators with a backdrop of the serene waters of the South Prong of the Wicomico River. Salisbury's charming Riverwalk connects the amphitheater to the Central Business District and the many popular shopping and dining opportunities available there. The amphitheater was originally built to serve as a permanent music venue for the National Folk Festival, which Salisbury was honored to host from 2018 to 2022. Now that the National Folk Festival torch has been passed on to its next hosting city, the tradition continues with the Maryland Folk Festival, held every September in downtown Salisbury. If you've never attended the Folk Festival, you just don't know what you've been missing. Musicians, dancers, and other artists will descend on Salisbury to entertain you for 3 consecutive days with traditional music, performing arts, and folklife demonstrations from diverse cultures around the world. You'll be able to enjoy a wide assortment of traditional American music, including bluegrass, western swing, gospel, and New Orleans jazz, as well as traditional songs and dances indigenous to Central and South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and beyond. You can also watch demonstrations of traditional folklife skills, such as weaving, decoy carving, aquaculture, crab picking, and so much more. The Maryland Folk Festival is free to all, but donations are always gratefully accepted to support future festivals. The Riverwalk Amphitheater is the place where concerts and other entertainment events of all descriptions will be held for years to come, a gathering place for the people of Wicomico County and those that visit, and a place for happy times where many memories are being built. and when the band stop playing, the amphitheater will be a place for quiet contemplation along the banks of the south prong of the Wicomico River. For more information about the Riverwalk and Amphitheater, you can visit the Salisbury Parks and Recreation Committee website. To find out more about the Maryland Folk Festival, visit mdfolkfest.com. This is Mike Goldberg for Open Agenda. Back to you, Joe.
Welcome back to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. I'm joined again with Councilwoman Shani Shields. Thanks again for sticking around. So we were talking a little bit before the break about the referendum in November. And this referendum is an effort to return Wicomico County to a council manager form of government. Not now, but in the next election cycle in 2026. You were one of the council folks who voted for it. And
Yes.
I'd like to find out a little bit more why you feel that way.
Well, originally I voted for the executive form of
In
council
2006?
in 2006. And I also, when I originally voted for that, I said, well, if it doesn't work, we can change it back. So this does not have anything to do with the current executive, because I can get along with anybody.
I've seen that.
Personally, I can get along with her. I don't care who it is. But this has something to do with the council knowing what's going on in the county. We're representing taxpayers, we're representing communities, and when you have things in the community that people don't know what's going on, particularly like they wanted to put the landfill, there was a landfill issue, and people had to come out and voice their concerns objecting to it. So these are the kind of things that we need to have more community involvement, make more transparency.
Well, and visiting the Indian Village playground and seeing that, I mean, obviously the basketball courts out there are new. The playground equipment is what is next in line to be renovated, but for a long time it's been lacking. And there's no programming yet, although my understanding, your understanding is that it's coming. And then you look at a program or a park like Pirates Wharf that was really a pet project of a former executive, Bob Culver, that's built in an area where we already have a very similar park, Pemberton Manor, which is a beautiful park. Is it frustrating to you to see a park like Indian Village that could use so much attention, but because you have this executive or that executive, you're constantly just looking to do something new and shiny?
And then I don't think it's necessarily the executive pushing these projects. I think it's people with money.
Okay.
So people that live in Indian Village, they have no money. They have no boats. They don't live in fancy houses.
Well, one of the arguments I've heard is that generally speaking, the executives are funded by
When
that same group. and they're-
when they get in office, they take all this money from people, and they turn around and have to do favors for them.
Okay. And I've seen some of that firsthand myself.
Yeah, and what you have to make it clear with your fund, the people that give you funds, that you have to do what's right for all the people. You're not just representing certain businessmen or a certain homeowner or a certain neighborhood. Me, I represent District 1, true, but I also represent the whole county.
You do.
And that concerns me, because what happens in Salisbury or in Hebron, if we clear up something like crime, for instance, if we clear up crime in Hebron, or if there's a trickle down, it's going to move somewhere else. So we have to be prepared to fix it. So when you have playgrounds, and one playground looks like I would say a 500 Forbes playground, and then you have another one that looks like a neglected playground, but it's in the same county.
Mhm.
It shouldn't be that way. It's like people living on one side of the railroad track and the other lives in another side.
And-
So we
and at
need to
the
make
end of-
it equal. We need to make it equal, and we need to bring affordable playgrounds.
Do you think if we were in a council manager form of government where there's 7 county council folks instead of just one executive, do you think that that would allow more moderation of where resources are put or even attention
We
is?
would have more control of the budget.
Yes.
We would be able to. Right now, we can't add to the budget. We can recommend. All we can do is cut the budget, which I think we should be able to also add to the budget.
Well, and speaking of that, and I've attended most every county council meeting and a lot of your work sessions. The budget was turned in at the very deadline, so you didn't have a whole lot of time for
Digest.
to digest it and make comments. And also, same with the Fraternal Order of Police, the contract negotiation. We actually missed charter deadlines because of the executive's office. Does that give you some consternation that maybe the protection won't be there or maybe programming won't be there if one person, any one person, not particularly the one we have now, but any one executive could miss deadlines, could maybe not even take into account county council recommendations?
I think that if you have a deadline, regardless who you are, you should meet it. You should. That's like if you write a grant and you're supposed to have a grant in by noon time, you should have it in the day before.
Yeah.
So I'm a deadline person. I like to be on time for meetings. I get to meetings, try to be there an hour early. But I think that we have no control. But what's happening now, we're coming out looking like a bad person. But if we had met the deadline, especially new people, you have to have digested stuff. And sometimes I call Laura to ask her questions. So when you, especially the collective bargaining piece, because I had never been involved really into that, and I only had one question about the collective bargaining was the COLA, and I was trying to get the people that's already retired the COLA, not the next people. I was trying to help the ones that's already retired see if they could get a COLA.
Well, one aspect of that was particularly concerning to me is there were times that you all asked the finance director questions and she flat out refused to answer your questions. Do you feel like that was at the direction of the executive's office?
She shocked me because I know Pam from the city.
Mm-hmm.
She actually shocked me. And see, I never got a job where I couldn't open my mouth in fear. I'm not going to be fearful to open and do what's right. If we asked her a question as a county council person and our taxpayers pay her salary, she should be willing to answer the question.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But when you're afraid, might be afraid of your job, you know, you don't intimidate people to be afraid of your job because you may not agree with somebody. You might be.
Well,
Might be
thank you
continue
for
this.
joining us.
Yeah.
I think we're going to wrap this up. Mother Nature said we've had enough.
Yes.
I hope that people come out. If they want to contact you directly, how would they?
Contact me through my phone, 443-523-0084. My personal email is sshields820@aol.com. I like to hear people's voices.
So you want them to come out to the meetings, right?
Yeah, and come to the meetings, share your concerns, whether you agree with me or not. I love talking to people that disagree because I like to debate.
I think you do. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for joining us for Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. For our last segment, we're going to ask Councilwoman Shani Shields to spend 3 minutes speaking about anything she chooses.
I want to encourage everyone to vote coming in November. If you're not registered, please get registered. To all the seniors, call for an absentee ballot if you do not wish to go to the ballot, or contact me. I just given you my phone number, and I will make sure you get an absentee ballot. Come to the meetings. Call me if you have any questions or concerns, and other council members. And to the young people, please get involved in your community. Please get involved in your community, because one day I may not be here and others may not be here, and we need someone to pass the baton to. If you're interested in getting in politics, you can contact me because I ran for city council 3 times before I even won. So I believe in volunteerism. You learn a lot. And if you're unemployed, go volunteer, because that's called unpaid work. And it would help your resume. Because I volunteered at Shore Up, and it certainly helped my resume when I first moved back home. And again, I hope you look at PAC 14. I hope you look at the council meetings if you don't wish to come to meetings, but just look at them so you can learn. And again, I said, if you have any concern that I can help you with, or find someone who can help you, just call me, and I'll try to do the best thing I can do.
Thank you. Very well said. I'm going to post Councilwoman Shields' information one more time on the show, so that if you'd like to reach her via phone or personal email. I will tell you firsthand, I reached out, I asked her some questions, and she invited me over. I think she'd do the same for just about anybody. So,
Sure will.
well, you have a great evening.
Yes.
And we'll be out right after this. We think Mark Carroll is the best editor ever.